Yes, we have waited 5 years for this shit. Are you ready? Let's go! Welcome back everybody, Jared here with another video for you. And yes, I haven't posted for a long time, and I know that many things, many big things in fact, have been going on with Canon releasing their EOS R5 and EOS R6, and a lot of Sony a7S III rumors and the ZV-1 that I never talked about. And that's because the pandemic situation in Singapore is starting to stabilize a little and jobs are starting to come back, client referrals and appointments and meetings whatsoever is starting to come back. I'm so sorry, I'm really busy. And because today is a very special day, I decided to sacrifice some sleep, and it's like 12+ AM now, and yeah. But no worries, I've recorded some things during my long break from YouTube, and I'll be quite excited to get back to editing these videos just for you. But it will really help to encourage and motivate me to continue producing content like this for you by hitting the like and subscribe button down below. And with that, let's get into it. So while I was on this break thingy, Canon released the EOS R5. Finally, you know what? I had high hopes for that camera, and Canon has this trend of releasing technological marvels every 10 years, and the last one was the 5D Mark II. And at the start of the year, this really looked like a Canon year because 1DX Mark III was awesome. Other than its big size, it did not really have any flaws. And then the EOS R5 came along. It's like the camera that all Sony a7S II and a7 III users were waiting for. It had the specs of the a7S III they were waiting for to exceed expectations. And to be honest, I really had high hopes for that camera. It was like brilliant in many ways, and 8K RAW, wow. And it came out with overheating and burning issues at 23 degrees Celsius? Come on man, I live in Singapore and usually the temperature is more than 34 degrees Celsius, thank you. Okay, maybe I'm drifting a bit too far. This video is about the a7S III. We'll save the Canon EOS R5 for another video. The announcement date for the Sony a7S III was rumored to be 28-29 July, around there. But tonight at like 9-10 PM, I saw this Sony thing on Instagram, and it's probably one of the most glorious things I've seen this year, and that's the July 28 announcement. And below it writes the Sony a7S III. Sony has closed the gap after 5 freaking years, you know, after a7S II, then wait, then Panasonic S1H, 4K 60p and 6K, and then Nikon Z6 with like 10-bit colors, and honestly it was nice. I edited a Nikon Z6 footage, and then Canon here and there, and then finally a7S III, thank the Lord. So yes, Sony confirmed it to be on the 28th of July, yes! But what's so special about this camera? So here are some rumored specs from Sony Alpha Rumors. Honestly, they aren't the most accurate thing until recently, unlike the more credible Canon rumors and whatnot. But to give the guys some credit, A9 Mark II, A7R4, ZV-1, 20, f1.8G and 12-24 f2.8G master. Those are pretty on point. So, but then again, these are rumors, so take it as a pinch of salt for now, and don't get too excited too quickly, although it is really exciting specs and it is finally something from Sony. So it's an all-new 12 megapixel sensor with fast readout, which is good because it supports the faster frame rates that's up later, and that is 1080p 240 FPS, you know. And this time 4K 120 frames per second raw over HDMI. That means raw output out of the HDMI cable with an external recorder. as you might see external recorder as an extra bulky thing you have to carry around, but that's good because unlike the Canon EOS R5 that does like 8K and RAW internally, and you have to pay for that premium price for something that not everybody needs, and probably you won't even need. RAW, not exactly everybody needs. People have done great works with the 8-bit codec of Sony. As for RAW, if you need it, you have the money to get the external recorder and you have the fast computers to deal with this RAW footage. Go for it, man. Sony is providing the flexibility for people who just want to record normally and people who have the money and need the RAW capabilities. That's good. 600 Mbps bitrate, finally something more than 100 Mbps on our cameras right now. Base ISO of 160 for S-Log3. Personally, I found my sweet spot with HLG. I don't use S-Log, but I think S-Log has that base ISO of 800 for our current cameras. So that means under sunlight, if you want the fast aperture and you want the dynamic range, it's not gonna work very well because the base ISO is 800. You probably have to bring some very strong ND filters to counter it. No dual ISO, that has never affected me. So max ISO of 400, 9600 for video. I think it's the same as the a7S II, but at least it's there. 15 stops of dynamic range, normal. It has been here since the A9 and the a7R III that I'm using right now. World's highest resolution, new 9.44 million dot EVF. Honestly, can my eyes handle that? But so far from my experience, the EVF on the a7R III is decent to me. I don't know if it works for everybody. Honestly, everybody has different preferences. You can't satisfy everybody in the world. I like the EVF on my a7R III. a7R4 I've tried before. It was brilliant. 9.44 million dots. I think that's gonna bring up the price of this camera by quite a margin. And I rather Sony divert more of their attention to the crappy screens they put on the back of my camera. Honestly, compared to other brands like Canon, Nikon, Panasonic, Sony has one of the crappiest screens at the back of the cameras, and that's why we have to spend so much money on monitors. And in recent shoots, I've been using the Fuel F6, and honestly, I see the big difference between a monitor and that screen. Obviously, I would rather trust the monitor, and it looks good on the monitor and the screen is showing me a ridiculously blown image. Honestly, it's not even a bit off, it's way off. So either trust the EVF or an external monitor. So please Sony, put a better screen at the back of my camera. But on the plus side, like the Sony ZV-1, it will have that flip out screen. Finally, every Sony user has been waiting for that since the start of time. A new kind of passive cooling system that will be noiseless and won't affect the audio of your video. You will have a mesh on the side to let air in, but somehow there's a bracket there and it says the camera will still be weather sealed. So at the start, when rumors had it that there will be a vent on the side of the camera, I was quite happy, which means that this camera won't overheat. But there goes the weather sealing, I guess, which the Canon R5 obviously has the edge in, but with vents that are dissipating heat from inside the camera, how is it going to be still weather sealed? No recording time limits. It has been a problem that Sony has solved for quite a while now. The a6400, a6600, ZV-1, I think a7R4, a9 II doesn't have recording time limits. But then every camera has limits, so probably your limit is probably either from your SD card or your batteries. Even if you're charging the camera while it's recording, there might become a certain point where the camera will have to cool down a bit. No overheating. Sony has solved the issue for quite some time now, since a6300 that is discontinued already, a6500, a7S II, a7R II. My a7 III still overheats if you record for on and on for quite some time, but it's not so often till I have major complaints about it, so it's been solved for quite some time. And that's probably an in-your-face move from Sony to Canon's EOS R5. UHS 2 card support. Like the newer generations of cameras that came out from Sony, the A9 II and the a7R4, I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that it's dual UHS 2 card slot, because it will be a real bummer if it's still one UHS 1 and one UHS 2. And it's better to write to both cards at the same speed, because as you've seen in the Canon, you can only write the higher resolution to one card, and honestly, if that card fails, after I've gone to recording dual cards every time I shoot with the a7R3 and my a7 III, I have never gone back. I cannot see myself going back to single card recording. Looks pretty similar to the a7R4. That's a good thing because it has the better ergonomics, but probably the only difference is the vents. Announcement will be in July and shipment will start mid-August. But honestly, if you're gonna pre-order, you won't receive it anytime soon, because like every other popular Sony product, it'll be back-ordered like hell. So those are the main rumored specs on what the a7S III might be capable of. And now let's take a look at a few sources who already have their hands on the prototype camera since last month, I think. So source number 1, Sony Alpha Rumors, says first time source, so take it with a pinch of salt. The new passive cooling system of the a7S III will be a little slit on the right side of the camera where all the ports are, which allows air to get in and out of the camera, which allows it to be cooler because the camera isn't completely sealed. Because it's a passive cooling system, it won't make any noise or sound, so it won't interrupt the audio when recording video. That's a good thing, honestly. The passive cooling slit on the side has a mesh, so the camera will be weather sealed. I really don't know how this works, we'll see on the 28th of July. It will not have dual native ISO, which more expensive cinema cameras have, like Blackmagic Cinema Camera 4K. But that's what Sony is, it just likes to keep their cameras more affordable for the mass consumers, so it's okay. It will, however, have a new sensor that has a very fast read and transfer speeds for the higher frame rates. And that's that, but I'm really curious to see what Sony does with the weather sealing, because Sony has never been known for their weather sealing capabilities, but with a slit that is exposing the insides of the camera to outside air to help it to cool down, I'm really curious to see how Sony did it with the weather sealing. Source number 2, we are currently shooting a video with the successor to the a7S II that we already now know is called the a7S III. The footage out of this tiny beast is incredible. We are shooting at 4K 120 frames per second at 10-bit 422 with 15 stops of dynamic range. Our test showing comparable to an Arri Alexa Mini. An Arri Alexa Mini is a cinema grade camera. For those of you who don't know, the cost of it, 5-6 digits. In short, it's a really expensive camera, and to see footage that is similar and close to those kind of cameras, that's pretty cool. And as expected, this camera will be released around the release price of the a7S II. Back at that time, it was like $3,000-4,000, around the same in USD. For those of you who are Singaporeans, my guess is around the $5,000 mark. But as of now, the a7S III, I won't be buying it right now, but I can see myself owning it within the next 1 year or so. I'll probably wait till the end of next year when prices start to fall. But at this stage, I'm equally excited, but in a different way, for what Sony's take on the a7 IV will be. I'm really excited to see what Sony would do for the a7 III successor. The a7 III itself was a brilliant camera when it was released. It had great video specs and it was great for stills as well, and it was under the $2,000 mark, which means that any beginner or anyone could really just pick up the camera and start shooting. And that was the camera that changed the whole industry and drove so many people from Canon and Nikon over to Sony. Because the A7 line is meant to be a jack of all trades, so if the R series doesn't improve, fair enough, because most of it went into the higher resolution sensor, but I hope to see a slight video bump in the A7 line, the A7 IV, hopefully 4K 60p, 10-bit 422, and added bonus of raw output if that can be possible. Once again, leave a like, subscribe for more, and comment down below your thoughts on the upcoming Sony a7S III. Has it exceeded your expectations? What would you like to see in that new camera? For me, I'm pretty excited, and that's all from me today, and see you soon.